a world where tradition rules and doubt follows every step, imagine standing alone while hundreds of voices whisper that you're using the wrong tool for the job. Picture the moment when everything you believe about yourself is tested by a single shot that could either prove them right or silence them forever. This is the story of Sarah Chen, a 34-year-old mother from rural Montana, whose unconventional choice in firearms made her the laughingstock of the prestigious Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge, until she did something that left seasoned marksmen speechless and rewrote the rules of long-range shooting forever. What happens when someone refuses to follow the crowd and trust their instincts instead? What happens when the wrong choice becomes the only right one? You're about to discover how one woman's determination and an unusual weapon combination created a moment that transformed not just her life, but an entire sport.
The range was silent. 2,000 yards stretched before her like an impossible canyon.
In her hands was a gun that experts said would never work. Behind her stood critics waiting for failure. Ahead lay a target that would either vindicate her choice or end her dreams. Sometimes the greatest victories come from the most unexpected places.
Sarah Chen never planned to become a marksman. Growing up in Billings, Montana, she was more interested in veterinary science than firearms.
I consider living in the dark.
Her father, Dr. James Chen, ran a large animal practice, and Sarah spent her childhood helping with ranch calls, learning to handle everything from anxious horses to stubborn cattle. The closest she came to shooting was the occasional need to put down an injured animal, a responsibility that taught her steadiness under pressure, though she never enjoyed it.
Life had a way of changing direction without warning.
At 22, fresh out of Montana State University with a degree in animal science, Sarah married Tom Martinez, a local rancher whose family had worked the same land for 4 generations. Their marriage seemed perfect. Two people who understood the demands of rural life, the importance of hard work, and the value of tradition.
But traditions sometimes become chains. Tom's family had always been hunters, and every Martinez man was expected to participate in the annual elk hunt. When Sarah gave birth to their daughter Emma, Tom assumed his wife would naturally take up shooting to help provide for the family. It was practical, he reasoned. And Sarah had always been practical. The first time Tom handed her his grandfather's Winchester Model 70, Sarah felt the weight of expectation along with the rifle. The gun was beautiful, well-maintained, and had taken countless elk over 3 generations. Tom's father Roberto had used it to win several local shooting competitions in his younger days. It was the kind of weapon that commanded respect at the local gun shop and drew nods of approval from other hunters. 1642 is bad today. 152 is decisive. Sarah's first attempts at the shooting range were disasters. The Winchester's heavy recoil bruised her shoulder, and its traditional scope setup never felt comfortable.
Tom and his father offered advice constantly, adjusting her stance, correcting her grip, explaining breath control. Every suggestion was well-meaning. But Sarah felt like she was trying to force herself into a mold that didn't fit. After 6 months of struggling, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. Instead of continuing to fight with the Winchester, she began researching alternatives.
I went there often.
What she discovered challenged everything the local shooting community believed about proper firearms. The gun that caught her attention was a customized AR-15 platform chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor.
To most traditional shooters, Arkansas 15s were associated with tactical shooting in military applications, not precision long-range work. The very suggestion of using such a weapon for serious marksmanship was enough to raise eyebrows and prompt lectures about proper shooting rifles. But Sarah saw something different in the specifications. The AR platform's modular design meant she could adjust everything to fit her body perfectly. The reduced recoil compared to traditional hunting rifles would allow her to see her shots through the scope. The ergonomics made sense to her in ways the Winchester never had. When Sarah mentioned her interest in the AR platform to Tom, his reaction was immediate and negative. His father was even more vocal in his disapproval. Roberto Martinez had been shooting for 40 years, and in his experience, serious marksmen used bolt-action rifles. Period. The AR-15, he declared, was a spray-and-pray weapon with no place in precision shooting. The local gun shop owner, Bill Henderson, shared similar views. When Sarah asked about purchasing components for a precision AR build, Bill's weathered face creased into a skeptical frown. He'd been selling firearms for 30 years and had strong opinions about what worked and what didn't. "Mrs. Martinez," he said, leaning across the counter, "I've seen plenty of folks get seduced by the latest trends. But at the end of the day, when you need to make a shot that counts, you want something proven. That Winchester your husband has, that's a real rifle.
These tactical guns might look impressive, but they're not built for the kind of accuracy you're talking about. Sarah listened politely, but something in her gut disagreed.
She'd done her research.
She'd read about precision AR builds taking first place in long-range competitions across the country.
She'd studied the ballistics, understood the mechanics, and most importantly, she trusted her instincts about what felt right in her hands. The decision to proceed despite the opposition wasn't easy.
Sarah worked part-time at the local veterinary clinic, and the money for a custom rifle build would stretch their budget thin. Tom made his feelings clear. He thought she was wasting money on a fad when she could simply learn to shoot the family rifle properly.
But Sarah had reached a crossroads that went beyond firearms. For too long, she'd allowed others to define what was right for her. In her marriage, in her career choices, in every aspect of life, she deferred to the wisdom of those with more experience. The rifle decision became symbolic of something larger, her right to trust her own judgment.
Sarah began saving money secretly, taking on extra shifts at the clinic and selling baked goods at the local farmer's market. Every dollar went toward components for her dream rifle.
She researched builders, studied different barrel profiles, and learned about optics with the dedication of a graduate student. The breakthrough came when she discovered a small custom shop in Colorado, run by a former military sniper named Marcus Webb. Marcus had transitioned from military service to building precision rifles for competitive shooters, and his portfolio included several AR platform builds that had achieved remarkable accuracy. When Sarah called Marcus to discuss her project, she expected another lecture about choosing the wrong platform. Instead, Marcus listened carefully to her requirements and asked thoughtful questions about her shooting goals. He didn't dismiss her platform choice or suggest she'd be better served by a traditional bolt gun.
The AR platform gets unfair criticism in precision circles, Marcus explained during their phone consultation.
When built correctly, with quality components and proper attention to detail, these rifles can achieve accuracy that rivals any bolt gun. The advantage is in the ergonomics and shooter comfort. If you're more comfortable behind the rifle, you'll shoot better. It's that simple. Marcus agreed to build Sarah's rifle, but he warned her about the challenges ahead. The precision AR community was small, and she'd face skepticism from traditional shooters. More importantly, she'd need to prove the rifle's capabilities through performance, not arguments. The build took 4 months. Marcus kept Sarah updated throughout the process, explaining each component choice and how it contributed to the rifle's accuracy potential. The barrel was a custom 24-inch stainless steel tube with a precision chamber. The trigger was a match-grade unit with a crisp 2-pound break. The stock was fully adjustable, allowing Sarah to achieve perfect length of pull and cheek weld. When the completed rifle arrived, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and terror. The weapon was beautiful, finished in an understated gray color scheme that looked professional without being flashy. But more importantly, it felt right in her hands in ways the Winchester never had.
Tom's reaction to the new rifle was predictably negative.
He'd hoped Sarah's shooting phase would fade away, allowing her to focus on what he considered more appropriate activities for a ranch wife and mother. The arrival of an expensive custom rifle signaled that Sarah's interest was serious and permanent. "You spent how much on that thing?" Tom's voice carried the edge it got when he felt his authority was being challenged.
We could have bought a decent used truck for that money.
Roberto was even more direct in his criticism.
"That's not a hunting rifle, Sarah. That's some kind of tactical nonsense."
"You mark my words. You'll never shoot accurately with that contraption." The local shooting community's reaction was swift and unanimous. When Sarah appeared at the range with her new rifle, conversation stopped and heads turned. Bill Henderson examined the weapon with obvious skepticism, pointing out features he considered unnecessary complications. "All those adjustments and gadgets," he muttered. "Just more things to go wrong when you need the rifle to work."
Other shooters were less diplomatic.
Sarah overheard comments about playing soldier and more money than sense. The rifle's black appearance and tactical styling marked her as an outsider, in a community that valued traditional aesthetics and time-tested designs. But Sarah had committed to a path, and she intended to see it through. Her first range session with the new rifle was revealing. The ergonomics that had felt right in dry-fire practice translated to genuine comfort during live shooting. The rifle's reduced recoil allowed her to spot her own shots, tracking bullet impact through the scope. Most importantly, the groups she printed were immediately better than anything she'd achieved with the Winchester. Word of Sarah's early success spread through the small shooting community, but rather than generating respect, it prompted explanations and excuses.
Some claimed the rifle's accuracy was artificial, produced by expensive components rather than genuine skill.
Others suggested that Sarah's groups were flukes that wouldn't hold up under pressure. The skepticism only strengthened Sarah's determination. She began shooting longer distances, pushing her skills and her rifle's capabilities. The local range only extended to 300 yards, so Sarah sought out private land where she could shoot farther. A sympathetic rancher allowed her to use a section of his property that offered clear shooting lanes out to 800 yards. At extended ranges, Sarah's rifle continued to perform impressively. The combination of quality components and ergonomic design that suited her shooting style produced consistent accuracy that surprised even Sarah herself. She began keeping detailed records of her shooting, documenting weather conditions, ammunition performance, and her own improvement over time. The records showed steady progress, but more importantly, they revealed something else. Sarah was developing genuine expertise in long-range shooting. Her understanding of ballistics, wind reading, and precision shooting techniques grew through dedicated practice and study. The rifle that others dismissed as inappropriate was becoming an extension of her will, accurate and reliable in her hands. As Sarah's skills improved, so did her confidence. The woman who had once deferred to others' expertise began trusting her own judgment in all aspects of shooting. She researched ammunition components and began hand-loading cartridges specifically tailored to her rifle.
She studied weather patterns and learned to read environmental conditions that affected bullet flight.
The transformation wasn't limited to shooting skills. Sarah's growing expertise in precision marksmanship affected how she approached other challenges. The analytical thinking required for long-range shooting carried over into her work at the veterinary clinic, where she began taking on more complex cases and earning recognition for her diagnostic abilities. Tom noticed the changes in his wife, but he misunderstood their source. He attributed Sarah's growing confidence to a phase that would eventually pass, like her brief interest in photography a few years earlier. Roberto remained convinced that Sarah's shooting success was temporary, dependent on expensive equipment rather than genuine skill. The local shooting community's attitude began to shift slightly as word of Sarah's consistency spread. While few were willing to admit that her rifle choice might be valid, some acknowledged that she was achieving impressive results. Bill Henderson grudgingly admitted that Sarah seemed to be making that tactical thing work somehow. But real validation would require more than range success. In the world of precision shooting, reputation was built through competition performance. Sarah began researching long-range shooting matches, looking for opportunities to test her skills against experienced competitors. What she discovered was both exciting and intimidating. The world of precision shooting competition was highly technical, populated by dedicated shooters with years of experience and expensive equipment.
All I know is by pressing and expensive equipment.
Many competitors were former military or law enforcement officers with professional shooting backgrounds. Almost all used traditional bolt-action rifles from established manufacturers. Sarah's research revealed one competition that particularly intrigued her: the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge. Held annually in Wyoming, the match featured shooting distances from 600 to 1,200 yards, with challenging target presentations and varying weather conditions. The competitor field included some of the best precision shooters in the region, making it an ideal proving ground for her unconventional rifle setup. The entry fee was substantial, and the competition would require several days away from home. Tom made his opposition clear, arguing that the money and time would be better spent on family priorities. But Sarah had made her decision. She would compete in the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge, and she would prove that her wrong gun could perform at the highest level. Registration for the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge opened on a cold February morning, and Sarah was among the first to submit her entry. The competition website warned that the match filled quickly, with many of the region's top shooters returning year after year.
As Sarah completed the online forms, entering her rifle specifications and shooting background, she felt the weight of what she was committing to.
The equipment list required for the competition was extensive. Beyond her rifle, Sarah would need a quality spotting scope, range-finding equipment, a shooting mat, specialized ammunition, and dozens of other items. The total cost approached what many families spent on vacation, but Sarah saw it as an investment in proving her approach to precision shooting. Tom's reaction to the competition entry was worse than Sarah had expected.
The argument that followed would strain their marriage in ways that shooting never had. Tom felt that Sarah was prioritizing a hobby over family responsibilities, spending money they couldn't afford on what he saw as an ego trip.
"This isn't about shooting anymore, Sarah," Tom said during one particularly heated exchange. "This is about you needing to prove something to people who don't matter. Our daughter needs a mother who's present, not someone chasing validation from strangers." The accusation stung because it contained an element of truth,
This is the book. It's about a history. Our daughter needs a mother who's present.
Sarah's motivation wasn't purely about shooting sports. It was about proving that her unconventional choices could succeed where traditional approaches had failed. But she also believed that showing Emma a mother who pursued her goals with determination was valuable, even if those goals seemed unusual. Sarah's preparation for the competition became consuming. She researched every aspect of precision shooting competition, from equipment optimization to mental preparation techniques.
Day and M.
She studied videos of previous matches, analyzing how top competitors approach different shooting scenarios. Most importantly, she practiced relentlessly, pushing her shooting distances out to the maximum ranges available. The breakthrough in her training came when she gained access to a private shooting facility owned by a retired engineer named Frank Morrison. Frank had built a sophisticated range on his property specifically for precision shooting practice, with steel targets positioned at distances from 400 to 1,000 yards. When Frank heard about Sarah's competition plans, he offered her access to his facility in exchange for help with range maintenance. Frank's range was revelation for Sarah. For the first time, she could practice at the distances she would encounter in competition, under conditions that matched what she'd face at the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge. The experience was humbling initially. Shooting accurately at 1,000 yards required skills and understanding that Sarah was still developing. Frank became an unexpected mentor. Despite his preference for traditional bolt-action rifles, he was impressed by Sarah's dedication and her rifle's performance. Frank had competed in precision shooting matches for 20 years before retiring from active competition, and his experience proved invaluable in Sarah's preparation. Shooting at these distances isn't just about equipment, Frank explained during one of their training sessions. It's about reading conditions, understanding your ammunition, and maintaining focus under pressure. The rifle is just the tool. The shooter makes the difference. Under Frank's guidance, Sarah learned to read wind patterns across long shooting lanes, identifying subtle environmental cues that affected bullet trajectory. She practiced shooting in various weather conditions, learning how temperature, humidity, and barometric pressure influenced her rifle's performance. The rifle is just the tool is to defend its pieces and take sustainable life. Most importantly, she developed the mental discipline required for precision shooting competition. The progress was measurable. Sarah's groups at 800 yards, which had initially measured over 2 inches, tightened to consistent sub-inch performance. At 1,000 yards, she achieved several groups under 1.5 inches, accuracy that Frank admitted was better than many experienced competitors achieved. But technical proficiency was only part of competition preparation. Sarah also had to develop the mental toughness required for high-pressure shooting. Frank introduced her to competitive shooting scenarios, creating artificial pressure and distractions during practice sessions. He would time her shots, introduce unexpected challenges, and critique her performance with the kind of intensity she would face in actual competition. In a match, you won't have unlimited time to make perfect shots. Frank warned, you'll be dealing with changing conditions, time pressure, and the knowledge that everyone is watching. The shooters who succeed are those who can maintain their fundamentals when everything else is chaos. As the competition date approached, Sarah's confidence grew, but so did the pressure from her personal life. Tom's opposition hadn't softened, and Roberto continued to predict that Sarah's unconventional rifle would fail under competition stress. Even supportive friends questioned whether Sarah was taking the competition too seriously, suggesting that she was setting herself up for disappointment. The skepticism extended to the broader shooting community. When word spread that Sarah Chen would be competing in the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge with a precision AR, the reaction was mixed at best. Some viewed it as an interesting experiment, while others saw it as attention-seeking behavior that would end in predictable failure. Bill Henderson's comments were typical of the local response. I admire her dedication, he told customers at his gun shop, but she's going up against guys who've been doing this for decades with proven equipment. That tactical rifle might shoot good groups at the local range, but competition is different. The pressure, the conditions, the level of competition, it'll expose any weaknesses in her setup. Sarah heard the comments and opinions, but she'd learned to filter out negativity that wasn't constructive. Frank's training had taught her to focus on controllable factors: her preparation, her equipment maintenance, and her mental state. External opinions, no matter how strongly held, wouldn't affect her rifle's accuracy or her shooting ability. This is the book. It's about history of the Southern. 3 weeks before the competition, Sarah received her first real test under pressure. Frank had arranged for her to participate in a local precision shooting match held at a nearby range.
And he wrote this year of poster.
The competition was smaller and less prestigious than the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge, but it would provide valuable experience shooting under match conditions. The local match drew 23 competitors, mostly experienced shooters with traditional bolt-action rifles.
When Sarah arrived with her precision AR, she immediately became the center of attention. Some competitors examined her rifle with curiosity, while others made comments that ranged from skeptical to dismissive. The match format included shooting stages at 600, 800, and 1,000 yards, with targets that challenged both precision and speed. Competitors had limited time to engage multiple targets, requiring quick transitions and accurate shooting under time pressure. It was exactly the kind of challenge that Sarah's critics believed would expose her rifle's limitations. The first stage, at 600 yards, went well for Sarah. Her rifle's ergonomics allowed quick target transitions, and the reduced recoil helped her spot impacts and make rapid corrections.
She finished the stage in third place overall, a result that surprised some competitors and worried others who had expected an easy victory over the newcomer.
At 800 yards, Sarah's performance improved. The longer distance played to her rifle's strengths, and her extensive practice with Frank paid off. She read the wind conditions correctly, made appropriate adjustments, and delivered accurate shots throughout the stage. When scores were posted, Sarah had moved into second place overall. The 1,000 yard stage would be decisive. This was where experience and equipment quality typically separated serious competitors from casual shooters. The targets were smaller, the wind effects more pronounced, and the margin for error virtually non-existent. Sarah's critics expected this stage to end her surprising run through the match. Instead, Sarah delivered the performance of her shooting career to that point. Her shots were consistent and accurate. Her wind reading was precise, and her equipment performed flawlessly. When the final scores were calculated, Sarah had won the stage and moved into first place overall.
The victory at the local match changed everything.
Sarah's success could no longer be dismissed as lucky groupings shot under ideal conditions. She had competed against experienced shooters under match pressure, and not only performed well but dominated. The precision AR platform that everyone had criticized had proven itself in competition.
The reaction to Sarah's victory was complex.
Some competitors congratulated her genuinely, impressed by her shooting and her rifle's performance. Others struggled to reconcile their preconceptions about AR platforms with the evidence of Sarah's success. A few remained convinced that the victory was a fluke that wouldn't be repeated against stronger competition. Frank was elated by Sarah's performance, but also realistic about the challenges ahead. "You've proven that your rifle can compete," he told her after the match. "But the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge will be different. The competition will be stronger, the distances longer, and the pressure more intense." This was good preparation, but it was just the warm-up act. Sarah understood Frank's caution, but she also felt a new confidence in her approach. The local match had validated her equipment choices and her training methods. More importantly, it had proven that she could perform under competition pressure. The precision AR that everyone had doubted was capable of winning matches against quality competition. Word of Sarah's local victory spread quickly through the precision shooting community. The story of the ranch wife who had beaten experienced competitors with an AR platform became a topic of discussion on shooting forums and social media. Some celebrated her success as proof that innovation and individual skill mattered more than traditional approaches. Others dismissed the victory as meaningless, arguing that the competition had been weak and the real test lay ahead. The attention was uncomfortable for Sarah, who preferred to let her shooting speak for itself. But she also recognized that her success carried broader implications. Other shooters who had been considering non-traditional rifle platforms were watching to see if her approach was replicable. Women who felt excluded from the male-dominated precision shooting community saw her as a representative who might open doors for broader participation.
The pressure was mounting as the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge approached.
Sarah's equipment was meticulously prepared. Her ammunition was tested and proven, and her shooting skills were as sharp as she could make them. But beyond the technical preparation, she was also dealing with the psychological weight of expectations and skepticism. Tom's attitude had shifted slightly following Sarah's local victory, but he remained concerned about the impact of her shooting activities on their family life. Roberto continued to predict failure, arguing that one match victory didn't prove anything about the long-term viability of Sarah's approach. "You got lucky once," he told Sarah bluntly. "But when you're shooting against real competition, at real distances, that luck will run out. Mark my words, that tactical rifle will let you down when it matters most." The criticism stung, but it also strengthened Sarah's resolve. She had spent 2 years developing her skills and proving her equipment. She had invested thousands of dollars and countless hours in pursuit of precision shooting excellence. Most importantly, she had discovered something about herself that transcended shooting sports: the power of trusting her own judgment even when experts disagreed. 2 weeks before the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge,
Sarah made her final preparations. She confirmed her ammunition supply, verified her equipment's zero, and completed her travel arrangements. Frank had agreed to accompany her as a spotter and coach, providing the kind of support that could make the difference in a close competition.
The night before leaving for Wyoming, Sarah sat with her rifle, performing the final cleaning and inspection that had become ritual. The weapon that had started as an experiment had evolved into something more, a precision instrument that represented her commitment to excellence and her willingness to challenge conventional wisdom. Tom found her in the workshop, carefully packing her equipment for transport. Their relationship had been strained by Sarah's shooting activities, but he recognized the importance of this moment for his wife. "I still think you're crazy for doing this," he said quietly, "but I hope you prove everyone wrong. Show them what you can do." It wasn't the enthusiastic support Sarah had hoped for, but it was acknowledgement that her goals mattered. As she finished packing her gear, Sarah felt ready for the challenge ahead.
The Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge would test everything she had learned about shooting, but more importantly, it would determine whether her unconventional approach could succeed at the highest levels of competition. The drive to Wyoming took 6 hours through mountain passes and high desert, giving Sarah time to think about the challenge ahead.
Frank rode with her, occasionally offering encouragement or technical reminders, but mostly respecting her need for mental preparation. The trailer carrying her equipment and ammunition bounced steadily behind their truck, a physical reminder of the investment she'd made in this moment.
The Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge was held at a private facility outside Casper, Wyoming, built specifically for long-range shooting competition. The range featured shooting positions carved into natural terrain, with target arrays positioned at distances from 600 to 1,200 yards across a valley floor that challenged even experienced marksmen. The facility's reputation drew competitors from across the western United States, making it one of the most prestigious precision shooting events in the region. When Sarah arrived at the competitor check-in on Friday afternoon, she immediately sensed the difference between this competition and the local match where she'd found success. The equipment visible in the parking area represented tens of thousands of dollars in precision rifles, optics, and specialized accessories. Competitors moved with the confident efficiency of people who knew exactly what they were doing, having participated in similar events many times before. The check-in process was thorough and professional. Range officials verified Sarah's equipment against safety requirements, confirmed her ammunition met match specifications, and assigned her competitor number 47. Her rifle drew curious glances from officials and other competitors, but the reactions were more subdued than she'd experienced at local ranges. These shooters had seen various equipment configurations, and most were focused on their own preparation rather than critiquing others' choices. Sarah's first real surprise came during the competitor briefing held Friday evening.
The match director, a former military sniper named Colonel David Hayes, outlined the competition format with military precision. The Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge wasn't simply about shooting small groups at long range. It was designed to test practical marksmanship skills under realistic conditions.
The competition would span 3 days, with different challenges each day testing various aspects of precision shooting. Day 1 would feature known distance shooting at 600, 800, and 1,000 yards, similar to what Sarah had practiced extensively.
Day 2 would introduce unknown distance targets, requiring competitors to use their equipment and skills to determine ranges before engaging targets. Day 3 would culminate with the Extreme Long Range Challenge, shooting at targets positioned at distances from 1,200 to 1,500 yards. But the real test would come on the competition's final stage. A single shot at a target position 2,000 yards away. This shot would be taken from a standing position, without the support systems typically used for extreme long-range shooting. Only competitors who completed all previous stages successfully would be eligible for the 2,000-yard challenge. And historically, fewer than half the field qualified for this final test. Colonel Hayes explained the 2,000-yard shot with particular emphasis. "Gentlemen and ladies," he said, scanning the room of competitors, "this shot represents the absolute pinnacle of precision marksmanship. The target is a 20-inch square at 2,000 yards, roughly equivalent to hitting a dinner plate at over a mile. You'll have one shot from a standing position with no artificial support beyond your rifle's bipod. Wind conditions will be measured and announced, but reading and compensating for environmental factors will be entirely your responsibility." The announcement sent murmurs through the competitor briefing. Sarah felt her stomach tighten as she considered the challenge. 2,000 yards was beyond anything she'd practiced, and shooting from a standing position eliminated the stability she'd relied on during training. This was precisely the kind of extreme challenge her critics had claimed would expose her rifle's limitations. After the briefing, Sarah and Frank reviewed her equipment one final time.
Her rifle was zeroed perfectly. Her ammunition was proven accurate, and her optics were calibrated for the distances she'd face.
But Frank was concerned about the standing shot requirement for the 2000-yard challenge.
Your rifle's balance is good, Frank observed, but it's heavier than most competitors will be using. That could work against you in a standing shot, especially if you're holding on target for any length of time.
Sarah had considered this issue during her preparation. Her precision AR was indeed heavier than most bolt-action rifles, but the weight was distributed differently, with more mass centered over the grip. She'd practiced standing shots extensively, and while the rifle's weight was noticeable, she'd found ways to manage it effectively. Saturday morning brought perfect shooting conditions, clear skies, light winds, and comfortable temperatures.
Sarah arrived at the Grange early, setting up her equipment at firing point 47 with the methodical care Frank had taught her. Around her, other competitors were conducting similar preparations, checking zeros, organizing ammunition, and preparing for the day ahead.
The first stage began at 600 yards, with a course of fire that challenged both precision and speed. Competitors had 15 minutes to engage 10 targets of varying sizes, requiring rapid target identification and accurate shooting. Sarah's rifle performed exactly as she'd hoped. The reduced recoil allowed quick follow-up shots, and the ergonomic design facilitated smooth target transitions. When scores were posted after the 600-yard stage, Sarah found herself in 8th place overall, a solid performance that put her well within striking distance of the leaders. More importantly, she'd proven that her equipment could perform under match conditions against high-level competition.
The 800-yard stage proved more challenging.
Wind conditions had strengthened throughout the morning, and reading environmental factors became critical for success. Sarah's extensive practice with Frank paid dividends here. She'd learned to interpret subtle wind signs that many competitors missed. Her shooting was consistent and accurate, moving her up to 5th place overall. But it was the one-way 000-yard stage where Sarah truly distinguished herself. The targets were smaller and the time limits tighter, creating pressure that eliminated several experienced competitors. Sarah's mental preparation and equipment familiarity allowed her to maintain her shooting rhythm despite the increased difficulty. When the stage concluded, she had moved into 2nd place overall, trailing only a former military sniper named Marcus Thompson. The reaction to Sarah's performance was immediate and mixed. Some competitors congratulated her, genuinely impressed by consistent shooting that demonstrated genuine skill rather than luck. Others struggled to understand how an unconventional rifle setup was outperforming proven equipment configurations. Marcus Thompson, the current leader, approached Sarah between stages with professional curiosity. As a former military sniper with extensive competition experience, Marcus had seen various equipment configurations, but Sarah's precision AR intrigued him.
"That's an interesting setup you're running," Marcus observed, examining Sarah's rifle with experienced eyes. "I've seen tactical rifles in competition before, but never one configured quite like this."
The accuracy you're achieving is impressive. Sarah appreciated Marcus's professional interest, which contrasted sharply with the skepticism she'd faced from local shooters. Marcus understood that equipment was secondary to shooter skill, and he recognized quality performance regardless of its source.
The rifle works well for me, Sarah replied modestly.
"I spent a lot of time getting the setup right, and I've practiced extensively with this configuration." Marcus nodded approvingly. "That's what matters."
In competition shooting, the best rifle is the one that helps you shoot accurately consistently. Platform is less important than execution.
Saturday's competition concluded with Sarah in 2nd place overall, a result that exceeded her most optimistic expectations. Frank was thrilled by her performance, but he also cautioned against overconfidence.
Sunday's unknown distance challenges would test different skills, and Monday's extreme long-range shooting would be unlike anything Sarah had experienced. That evening, Sarah called Tom to report her progress. His response was cautious but supportive. He was pleased by her success but remained concerned about the pressure she was placing on herself. Emma was excited to hear that her mother was performing well in competition, though she didn't fully understand what precision shooting entailed. Sunday's unknown distance stages proved Sarah's most challenging yet. Without known ranges to the targets, she had to rely on her range-finding equipment and ballistic calculations to determine proper scope adjustments. The process was time-consuming and prone to errors, requiring the kind of technical knowledge that came only through extensive study and practice. Sarah's preparation once again proved valuable. Her detailed range cards and ballistic data allowed quick, accurate range estimations. More importantly, her rifle's consistent performance meant that proper calculations translated reliably into accurate shots. She completed Sunday's stages in third place overall, still well positioned for Monday's final challenges. The atmosphere on Sunday evening was tense. Only 12 competitors had successfully completed all stages and qualified for Monday's extreme long-range shooting. Sarah was among them, along with Marcus Thompson and several other experienced competitors whose reputations preceded them. Colonel Hayes addressed the qualified competitors during Sunday's briefing. "You 12 represent the best precision shooters in this competition," he announced. "Tomorrow's challenges will test the absolute limits of your equipment and abilities." The 2,000-yard standing shot has been completed successfully only 7 times in this competition's history. Most attempts fail not because of equipment limitations, but because shooters attempt shots beyond their proven capabilities.
The colonel's words carried an implicit warning. Attempting the
2,000-yard shot unsuccessfully could undo an otherwise successful competition performance. Competitors who missed the extreme long-range shots would be penalized heavily in the overall standings. Sarah spent Sunday evening reviewing her ballistic data for the extreme ranges she'd face Monday. The calculations required for 2,000-yard shooting were complex, accounting for bullet drop, wind drift, atmospheric conditions, and other factors that became increasingly important at extended ranges. Her ammunition's ballistic coefficient and velocity had been measured precisely, but translating that data into accurate shots would require perfect execution. Frank was both excited and nervous about Monday's final stages. "You've already proven everything you set out to prove," he told Sarah. "Your rifle performs at the highest levels, your shooting is world-class, and you've earned respect from serious competitors. Tomorrow is about pushing limits, not proving points." Sarah appreciated Frank's perspective, but she also felt the pull of the ultimate challenge. The 2,000-yard shot represented something beyond competition success. It was validation of her unconventional approach at the most demanding level possible. Succeeding would silence critics permanently, while failure would provide ammunition for those who claimed her equipment couldn't perform under extreme conditions. Monday morning dawned clear but windy, with conditions that would challenge even the most experienced long-range shooters. Sarah arrived at the range to find wind flags dancing vigorously across the valley, indicating variable conditions that would require constant adjustment and precise reading. The 200-yard stage began the day's competition, and immediately several competitors struggled with the challenging conditions. Sarah's shooting remained consistent, but the increased distance and wind effects made precise shot placement difficult for everyone. She completed the stage successfully, though her group size had opened compared to shorter ranges. At 1,500 yards, only 8 competitors managed to complete the stage within acceptable accuracy standards. Sarah was among them, though her shots required significant wind corrections and precise ballistic calculations. The rifle was performing well, but the extreme range was testing both equipment and shooter to their limits. Finally, 6 competitors qualified for the 2,000-yard challenge: Sarah, Marcus Thompson, and 4 other experienced long-range shooters. The target was positioned across the valley, barely visible even through high-powered optics. Sarah, 000. At that distance, environmental factors dominated bullet flight, and the smallest errors in calculation or execution would result in complete misses. Colonel Hayes called the qualified shooters together for final instructions. "The target is exactly 2,000 yards from the firing line," he announced. "Wind speed is currently 8 to 12 miles per hour from your 2 o'clock position, but conditions are variable across the shooting lane. You'll shoot in reverse order of current standings, which means Mrs. Chen shoots first." Sarah felt her heart rate increase as she realized she would be the first to attempt the ultimate challenge. There would be no opportunity to observe other shooters' attempts or learn from their successes and failures. She would face the 2,000-yard target with only her preparation and equipment to rely on. As Sarah moved to the firing line, she was aware of every eye focused on her and her unconventional rifle. The moment she'd trained for had arrived, and everything she'd claimed about her equipment choices would be tested by a single shot at an impossible distance. Sarah stepped to the firing line with deliberate calm, though her heart was racing. 2,000 yards stretched before her like an impossible canyon, the target barely visible even through her rifle's powerful scope. She could feel the weight of skeptical eyes behind her, competitors and spectators who had watched her progress through the match with mixtures of admiration and doubt. The wind was variable and tricky, gusting from 8 to 12 miles per hour from her 2 o'clock position. But Sarah had learned to read environmental conditions during months of training with Frank, and she spent several minutes studying the wind flags positioned at intervals across the shooting lane. The patterns were complex but readable.
She would need to account for approximately 7 minutes of angle of wind drift, assuming the conditions remained consistent during her bullet's flight time.
Frank positioned himself beside her with a spotting scope, ready to call the shot's impact if she missed the target entirely. His presence was reassuring, but Sarah knew that the final execution would depend entirely on her preparation and her rifle's capabilities.
So, it's something bad sometimes.
Take your time, Frank murmured quietly. You've made this shot 1,000 times in practice.
Trust your data, trust your rifle, trust yourself. Sarah nodded and began her shooting routine, the systematic process she developed through months of training. First, she verified her rifle's position and her body's alignment with the target. The standing position eliminated many of the stability advantages she'd enjoyed during earlier stages, but her rifle's balance and ergonomics helped her maintain a steady sight picture. Next, she consulted her range card and calculated the ballistic solution for 2,000 yards. The bullet would drop approximately 470 inches during its flight, requiring massive scope adjustment to compensate.
The wind would drift the bullet roughly 35 inches horizontally, assuming her reading was correct. Combined with the precision required to hit a 20-inch target at that distance,
The margin for error was virtually non-existent.
Sarah dialed in her scope adjustments methodically, double-checking each calculation against her ballistic data. Around her, the range fell silent as spectators and competitors recognized the magnitude of the challenge she was attempting. Even experienced long-range shooters rarely attempted shots beyond 1,500 yards, and doing so from a standing position was considered nearly impossible. With her scope properly adjusted, Sarah settled into her final shooting position. The rifle's weight, which had concerned Frank, actually helped provide stability in the standing position. Sarah had learned to use the weapon's mass as an anchor, allowing her body to settle into a natural firing stance that minimized movement and tremor.
Through her scope, the target appeared impossibly small, a tiny square of steel against the distant hillside.
At 2,000 yards, even perfect equipment and flawless execution might not be sufficient to achieve a hit.
But Sarah had committed to the attempt, and she intended to give it her best effort. She controlled her breathing carefully, waiting for the natural respiratory pause that would provide the steadiest possible platform for her shot.
the wind conditions appeared relatively stable, though Sarah knew that changes across the long shooting lane could affect bullet flight in ways that were impossible to predict perfectly. Colonel Hayes announced the time limit.
You have 3 minutes to complete your shot, Mrs. Chen.
The clock starts now. Sarah felt the familiar calm that preceded her best shooting descend over her. The sounds of the range faded into background noise, her vision narrowed to focus solely on the target, and her body settled into the shooting position with practiced ease. Everything she'd learned about precision marksmanship, from equipment selection to environmental reading to mental preparation, converged in this single moment. She placed her finger on the trigger and began applying pressure gradually, exactly as Frank had taught her. The rifle's match-grade trigger would break cleanly at exactly 2 pounds of pressure, but Sarah's focus was on maintaining perfect sight alignment and natural point of aim throughout the trigger press. The shot broke with a crisp surprise that indicated perfect trigger control. Sarah felt the rifle's recoil impulse and immediately returned to the scope to observe the bullet's impact. Ch-ch-ch. At 2,000 yards, the bullet's flight time was nearly 3 seconds, creating a suspension of anticipation that seemed to stretch infinitely. Frank, watching through his spotting scope, called the impact immediately. Hit! Dead center! The silence that followed Frank's call was profound. For several seconds, nobody moved or spoke as the reality of Sarah's achievement registered. She had not only hit the target, but had struck it in the center, achieving accuracy that few shooters could match at any distance.
Much less from a standing position at 2,000 yards.
Then the range erupted in spontaneous applause. Competitors who had been skeptical of Sarah's equipment choices were on their feet, acknowledging what they'd witnessed. Marcus Thompson was among the first to congratulate her, his professional appreciation evident.
That was extraordinary shooting, Marcus told Sarah as she stepped back from the firing line.
I've seen world-class snipers attempt that shot and fail. The fact that you succeeded with that rifle setup proves that accuracy comes from the shooter, not the equipment brand. Colonel Hayes approached with obvious admiration. Mrs. Chen, in 15 years of running this competition, I've seen exactly 7 successful shots at 2,000 yards. Yours was the most impressive because it was also the most difficult, taken with unconventional equipment that many people claimed couldn't perform at extreme ranges. The remaining competitors still needed to attempt their 2,000-yard shots, but Sarah's success had fundamentally changed the atmosphere of the competition. Her achievement had proven that precision shooting excellence could come from unexpected sources,
challenging assumptions that had dominated the sport for decades. Marcus Thompson's attempt resulted in a near miss, his bullet striking just outside the target's edge.
3 other competitors missed entirely, their shots falling victim to wind changes or calculation errors. Only one other shooter, a former Army sniper named James Rodriguez, managed to achieve a hit, though his impact was at the target's edge rather than the center.
When the final scores were calculated, Sarah had won the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge overall. Her victory margin increased significantly by her perfect performance on the 2-second 000-yard challenge.
The woman who had arrived with equipment that experts claimed was inappropriate had defeated a field of experienced competitors using proven traditional rifles. The victory ceremony was emotional for Sarah. Standing on the podium with her unconventional rifle, she represented something larger than individual success. Her achievement demonstrated that innovation and individual determination could overcome conventional wisdom and established prejudices.
Colonel Hayes presented the championship trophy with words that acknowledged the broader significance of Sarah's victory. This year's champion has reminded us that excellence in precision shooting comes from dedication, preparation, and skill, not from conforming to traditional expectations. She has proven that the right rifle is the one that helps the shooter perform to their potential, regardless of what others might think appropriate.
The drive home to Montana was celebratory but reflective.
Frank was elated by Sarah's success and proud of the role he'd played in her preparation.
But Sarah was already thinking beyond the competition victory to what it meant for her future in precision shooting and her relationships at home.
The shooting community's reaction to her victory was immediate and widespread.
News of her success spread through online forums and social media, generating discussions about equipment choices, traditional versus innovative approaches, and the role of individual skill versus conventional wisdom. Many shooters who had dismissed AR platforms for precision work began reconsidering their positions. But the most meaningful response came from other women who had felt excluded from precision shooting sports.
Sarah received dozens of messages from female shooters who saw her success as validation that they could pursue their interests despite skepticism from traditional shooting communities. Tom's reaction to the victory was complex.
He was genuinely proud of Sarah's achievement and impressed by the recognition she'd received from the shooting community, but he also worried about the attention and the pressure it might place on their family life.
The victory had transformed Sarah from a local curiosity into a recognized figure in precision shooting sports. Roberto Martinez, who had been Sarah's harshest critic, struggled to reconcile her success with his beliefs about proper shooting equipment.
His prediction that her tactical rifle would fail under pressure had been proven spectacularly wrong, and he found it difficult to acknowledge his error gracefully. Bill Henderson, the local gun shop owner, was more adaptable in his response, while he still preferred traditional rifles personally. Sarah's victory had taught him to be more open-minded about customer preferences. He began stocking components for precision AR builds, recognizing that there was demand for alternative approaches to accuracy.
The victory's impact on Sarah herself was profound. The woman who had once deferred to others' expertise in all aspects of life had discovered the power of trusting her own judgment and pursuing her goals with determination. The rifle that everyone had said was wrong had become the instrument of her greatest success.
But perhaps most importantly, Sarah's achievement had implications that extended far beyond shooting sports. Her victory demonstrated that challenging conventional wisdom, when backed by thorough preparation and genuine skill, could produce extraordinary results. She had shown that the courage to be different, combined with the commitment to excel, could overcome skepticism and prove critics wrong. In the weeks following her victory, Sarah was invited to compete in other precision shooting matches across the country.
Equipment manufacturers requested her endorsement for their products. Shooting magazines wanted to feature her story and her rifle setup.
The woman who had begun shooting to please her husband's family had become a recognized expert whose opinions were sought and valued. Sarah's story resonated because it represented more than sporting success. It was a testament to the importance of individual determination, the value of unconventional thinking, and the power of persevering despite criticism and doubt. Her wrong gun had become the right choice because she had made it work through dedication, preparation, and skill.
The rifle that had drawn ridicule and skepticism had achieved the ultimate validation, not through arguments or explanations, but through performance at the highest level of competition. Sarah's
2.000-yard shot had silenced critics permanently, proving that precision and accuracy came from the shooter's commitment to excellence rather than conformity to traditional expectations. As Sarah continued to compete and share her expertise with other shooters, she carried with her the knowledge that challenging conventional wisdom could lead to extraordinary achievements. Her success had opened doors for others who might follow unconventional paths to precision shooting excellence, proving that the best equipment was always the equipment that helped individual shooters achieve their potential, regardless of what experts might prefer.
The mocking voices that had questioned her wrong gun choice had been silenced by the undeniable evidence of her success. Sarah Chen had proven that sometimes the most criticized choices produce the most remarkable results, and that true excellence comes from having the courage to trust your instincts and the determination to prove them right.
6 months after her victory at the Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge, Sarah's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. The woman who had once been dismissed as an amateur with inappropriate equipment had become one of the most sought-after precision shooting instructors in the country.
Her calendar was filled with requests for training sessions, equipment consultations, and speaking engagements at shooting events across the nation. The immediate aftermath of her competition victory had been overwhelming.
Video footage of her 2000-yard shot had gone viral in shooting sports communities, accumulating hundreds of thousands of views and generating intense discussion about equipment choices and shooting techniques.
Precision shooting forums debated the technical aspects of her success, while equipment manufacturers studied her rifle configuration for insights into optimal AR platform builds.
But beyond the technical discussions, Sarah's story had resonated with people who had faced similar challenges in their own lives. Individuals who had been told their approaches were wrong, their equipment inappropriate, or their goals unrealistic. Her success represented validation for anyone who had ever chosen an unconventional path, despite expert criticism. The transformation in her personal life was equally significant. Tom's attitude towards Sarah's shooting activities had evolved from reluctant tolerance to genuine support.
Witnessing his wife's success at the highest levels of competition had helped him understand that her dedication represented more than an expensive hobby. It was the pursuit of excellence in a demanding sport that required genuine skill and commitment. Emma, now 8 years old, had become Sarah's biggest supporter. The young girl didn't fully understand the technical aspects of precision shooting, but she was proud that her mother had achieved something remarkable despite people saying she couldn't. Emma often accompanied Sarah to local shooting events, serving as an enthusiastic assistant and learning about goal setting and perseverance through her mother's example. The relationship with Roberto Martinez remained complex but had improved significantly. Sarah's success had forced him to acknowledge that his understanding of precision shooting equipment was incomplete, and he had gradually developed respect for her achievements. While he still preferred traditional rifles personally, he no longer dismissed alternative approaches as invalid. Frank Morrison continued to serve as Sarah's mentor and coach, but their relationship had evolved into genuine partnership.
Frank's experience and Sarah's innovative thinking created a powerful combination that attracted other shooters seeking instruction.
Together, they had developed training methods that combined traditional marksmanship fundamentals with modern equipment optimization. The local shooting community's transformation was perhaps the most dramatic change of all.
Bill Henderson's gun shop now regularly sold precision AR components, and several local shooters had adopted similar rifle configurations after seeing Sarah's success. The woman who had once been an outsider had become a respected member of the community whose opinions carried significant weight. But Sarah's influence extended far beyond her immediate community. She received regular invitations to instruct at shooting schools across the country, sharing her expertise with students who ranged from military snipers to competitive shooters seeking to improve their performance. Her teaching methodology emphasized the importance of equipment fit and individual optimization over rigid adherence to traditional approaches. One of her most successful students was Maria Rodriguez, a young woman from Texas who had faced similar skepticism when she chose an unconventional rifle setup for competition. Under Sarah's guidance, Maria had achieved significant success in regional matches, proving that Sarah's approach was replicable by other dedicated shooters. Sarah taught me that the best equipment is the equipment that works for you individually, Maria explained to other students during one of Sarah's training courses. She showed me how to analyze my own shooting needs and build a rifle configuration that supported my natural shooting style instead of forcing me to adapt to traditional setups. The equipment manufacturers who had initially ignored Sarah's success eventually recognized her influence on the precision shooting market. Several companies offered her endorsement contracts seeking to associate their products with her achievements. Sarah accepted only those partnerships that aligned with her values and allowed her to maintain her independence as an instructor and competitor.
One particularly significant partnership was with Marcus Webb, the rifle builder who had constructed Sarah's original precision AR.
Together, they developed a line of precision AR components specifically designed for long-range competition. The Sarah Chen Signature Series incorporated lessons learned from her competition experiences and training work,
making high-quality precision AR builds accessible to a broader range of shooters. The commercial success of these products validated Sarah's belief that there was significant demand for alternative approaches to precision shooting. Traditional bolt-action rifles remained popular, but a growing segment of the market appreciated the advantages that properly configured AR platforms could offer. Sarah's competition career had continued to flourish after her Rocky Mountain Precision Challenge victory. She competed regularly in matches across the country, achieving consistent success that silenced any remaining doubters about her equipment choices. Her rifle setups had evolved and improved through experience, but the fundamental approach remained unchanged, optimizing equipment to match individual shooter characteristics rather than conforming to traditional expectations. Her most significant competition achievement came at the National Precision Rifle Championship, where she finished second overall against a field that included some of the world's best long-range shooters. The competition's final stage featured shooting at extreme ranges up to 2,500 yards, distances that pushed both equipment and shooters to their absolute limits. Sarah's performance at the national championship demonstrated that her Rocky Mountain victory hadn't been a fluke. She was genuinely one of the country's elite precision shooters, capable of competing successfully at the highest levels of the sport. More importantly, she had achieved this success while maintaining her commitment to unconventional equipment choices. The attention from her competition successes led to opportunities beyond shooting sports. Sarah was invited to speak at women's leadership conferences, using her story to illustrate the importance of trusting individual judgment and persevering despite criticism. Her message resonated with audiences who faced their own challenges in male-dominated fields or situations where conventional wisdom discouraged innovation. The most important lesson I've learned, Sarah told audiences, is that experts can be wrong, especially when they're evaluating approaches that fall outside their experience. Success requires the courage to trust your own analysis and the determination to prove your choices through performance rather than arguments. These speaking engagements introduced Sarah to business leaders, educators, and professionals who saw parallels between her shooting success and their own challenges in pursuing unconventional strategies. Several organizations hired her as a consultant, seeking to apply her insights about performance optimization and individual excellence to their own operations. The income from Sarah's various activities, competition winnings, instruction fees, equipment endorsements, and speaking engagements, had significantly improved her family's financial situation. More importantly, it had validated her belief that pursuing excellence in precision shooting could become more than an expensive hobby. Tom had initially worried about the time demands of Sarah's expanded activities, but he came to appreciate that her success had opened opportunities for their entire family. Emma's exposure to her mother's achievements had taught valuable lessons about goal setting and perseverance. The family's travel to various shooting events had broadened their horizons and introduced them to people and places they never would have encountered otherwise. The technical aspects of Sarah's rifle setup continued to evolve as she gained experience and access to improved components. Working with Marcus Webb, she had developed several different rifle configurations optimized for specific types of competition. But the fundamental principles remained constant: ergonomic fit, consistent accuracy, and reliability under demanding conditions. Other shooters frequently requested detailed information about Sarah's equipment specifications, hoping to replicate her success through identical setups. Sarah was always willing to share technical information, but she emphasized that copying her exact configuration wouldn't guarantee similar results. The key was understanding the principles behind her choices and applying them to individual requirements. My rifle works for me because it fits my body dimensions, shooting style, and competition goals, Sarah explained to inquiring shooters. You need to develop a setup that addresses your specific needs rather than trying to copy someone else's solution. This philosophy of individual optimization became central to Sarah's teaching methodology. Rather than prescribing specific equipment configurations, she taught students how to analyze their own shooting characteristics and build setups that supported their natural abilities while addressing their weaknesses. The success of this approach was evident in the achievements of Sarah's students. Shooters who had struggled with traditional rifle configurations often found dramatic improvement when they adopted equipment setups that better matched their individual characteristics. The diversity of successful configurations among Sarah's students proved that there was no single correct approach to precision shooting equipment. As Sarah's reputation grew, she was invited to contribute articles to shooting magazines and websites.
Fans!
Her writing emphasized the technical aspects of precision shooting while also addressing the psychological and training elements that contributed to success. These articles reached thousands of shooters and helped spread her philosophy of individual optimization beyond her direct students.
One particularly influential article titled "The Myth of Universal Solutions in Precision Shooting" challenged the shooting community's tendency to promote specific equipment configurations as universally superior. Sarah argued that the diversity of human physiology and shooting styles meant that optimal equipment choices were inherently individual, and that rigid adherence to traditional approaches could prevent shooters from achieving their potential.
The article generated significant discussion in shooting communities, with some traditional shooters defending conventional wisdom, while others embraced Sarah's message of individual optimization. The debate was healthy for the sport, encouraging shooters to think more analytically about their equipment choices rather than simply following established patterns.
Sarah's influence extended to equipment manufacturers, who began developing more modular and adjustable rifle systems that could be configured to match individual shooter requirements. The success of her approach had demonstrated a market demand for customizable precision rifles that went beyond traditional one-size-fits-all solutions.
Looking back on her journey from skeptical beginner to nationally recognized expert, Sarah was most proud of the example she had set for other shooters who faced similar challenges.
Her success had opened doors for women in precision shooting sports and had encouraged other shooters to pursue unconventional approaches when traditional methods weren't working for them. The rifle that had been mocked as inappropriate had become the foundation for a new understanding of precision shooting excellence.
Sarah's achievements had proven that success came from matching equipment to individual characteristics rather than conforming to external expectations about what was correct or proper. More importantly, her story had demonstrated the power of perseverance in the face of skepticism. Sarah had trusted her instincts when experts disagreed, committed to excellence despite criticism, and ultimately proven her critics wrong through undeniable performance.
Her wrong gun had become the right choice because she had made it work through dedication, preparation, and skill. As Sarah continued to compete, teach, and inspire other shooters, she carried with her the knowledge that her greatest achievement wasn't any single shot or competition victory.
Her legacy was the understanding that excellence could emerge from unexpected places, that innovation often required challenging conventional wisdom, and that the courage to be different combined with the commitment to excel could produce extraordinary results. The mocking voices that had questioned her equipment choices had been silenced not by arguments or explanations, but by consistent performance at the highest levels of competition.
Sarah Chen had proven that sometimes the most criticized paths lead to the most remarkable destinations, and that true success comes from having the wisdom to trust yourself and the determination to prove your choices through excellence. Her story continued to inspire shooters around the world who faced their own challenges in pursuing unconventional approaches to precision shooting. Sarah's legacy was the understanding that the best equipment was always the equipment that helped individual shooters achieve their potential, regardless of what traditions might dictate or what experts might prefer. In the end, Sarah's wrong gun had become a symbol of the power of individual determination and the importance of trusting one's own judgment. Her success had transformed not only her own life but had influenced an entire sport, proving that sometimes the greatest victories come from having the courage to stand alone and the skill to prove that standing alone was the right choice all along.